You know, Jesus came to give us life and life more abundantly. But are you experiencing that more abundant life? Well, guess what? It could be not because heaven ran out of oil, but because the vessel, us, weren't prepared. And so that's what we do in quantum capacities. We prepare the vessel, we prepare that quantum realm, our thought life, our belief system, all of the inner world that we operate on this 3D world with. We prepare that to receive everything that God has for us, all of the big destiny that He pre-planned for you. He pre-dreamed it. You still get to dream with Him, but He pre-dreamed you up and designed you to have abundant, impactful life. And that's what we do in quantum capacity. So it's like a spiritual gym. We're working out our spiritual muscles and we're getting ourselves prepared to have the capacity and the strength of our inner world to receive everything that the Lord has for us. So won't you join me in quantum capacity? We'll see you soon. Hey there, welcome to the show. My dear friend and client, Adri, would like to share her story, and I encourage her to do this because she is so inspirational. She has overcome trauma from ritual abuse when she was younger, and her family was in that, but she doesn't identify with being a survivor of SRA, which satanic ritual abuse, because she's always seeking the light and she's always wanting to define herself by who Jesus says she is. And so it's an amazing story and inspiration that will touch you and show you like a different way to look at things, a different way to look at the world. She was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. She has, because of all of the trauma that they created around her colon and uterus and bladder and all of that, there's a tumor that's all entwined and everything is all mixed up. There's so much scar tissue and everything in there that it created a cancer. But anyway, she is just a delight, and you'll love her story. She is loved by thousands of people around the globe, and you're going to love her too. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Spirit-Centered Business Podcast, where we blend the spiritual with the practical for supernatural results. Now, here is your host, Bralynn Newby.
Okay, well, welcome back to this part 2 of Adri's story. I'm just so blessed and blown away by how extraordinary she has, the things that she's done in her life and her attitude and the way that she works with the Lord, and oh my gosh, it's just, it blows me away. So I just trust that everyone who hears this is just going to be so inspired and blown away, and also eyes opened about what's really going on in the world. And when you hear the kind of glossy term human trafficking or whatever, like there's so much more to that and what really goes on and why that happens. And so I don't know how much we're going to get into. We're just going to kind of have a free-flowing conversation. But as I mentioned in part 1, every day that we're texting back and forth on WhatsApp, because she's in South Africa, obviously, I'm in the United States. And every day she just shares some amazing little snippet and tidbit from her past. You know, either something that's really inspiring or something that's really, oh my gosh, really that happened? You know, and so I have like a little bit of list going back in time from our message, Adri, and I know that you put together a list. So between the two of us, we
Yes.
should remember what to talk about, right?
Yeah, it might take a while. Thank you, Bralynn, for the introduction and for allowing me to share some of the things. And I was thinking about it, and the stories, and the things that have happened. For me, it's not just about like the poverty and the heartache and the trauma. It's also about, the people that I've met that overcame so much, and the strength that they taught me, and the love that they taught me, and about God that never gives up, that you're never too damaged to, to heal and to be restored. And
That's so good.
yes, and that when you advocate for a child or even an adult, that when you fight for them in whichever way, and we had to really, fight a lot, unfortunately, with government departments, and just getting them the resources that they needed. And, for me, even in those years, it was, you see beyond the trauma, you see the potential, and you see the healing and the potential that they don't see yet. And for me, it's that thing of, it's God's light. As long as I'm aware of God's light, then there is hope.
That's so good.
And even, there were many, like specifically the street children that we worked with, there were many of them that died. We had to have a lot of funerals that we did for them, because there were no families to give them dignified funerals. And but that doesn't mean that they didn't experience that love and healing, yes.
Well, you
So
acted as family for a lot of people, not only children, but for adult and elderly, and you were
yes,
yeah.
yes, and a lot of people feel that they cannot make an impact, so, or they just feel that it's something that's too big for them, because you hear the term street children and you hear the term homeless, and it is such a big concept for people that they don't see the individuals, and then they rather call me or one of the team that I was part of, and for us to come and help, because they themselves feel that they cannot help. But there is a lot that people can do. You don't have to be a big NGO or have all the resources.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that people who are so removed, and I would probably say most of people in the US, don't really understand the problem, and they haven't experienced, or they don't know, and so they don't know how to help, or even that they can help,
Yes, I think the first thing is to identify, or to know that it's an individual, even though it's the term street child or homeless adult or whatever. The other thing is, to determine the need, because these people do have lots of needs, but how to help that person, you have to determine what's the need. And sometimes people feel it's better just to give money, which is good if you give to the organization, not directly into a street child's hands or into a homeless person's hands, and just to get them to a place where there are people that can help them.
Yeah.
There were many times that we had to get more resources, and we had to fight for it, basically, especially in the government system, in the hospitals, just to get the help that they needed. So I was prepared to fight.
But you had physical fights too. You told me about your kicking down door days are over.
Yes, I did. And I kind of feel embarrassed about it in a sense, but um, you know, only later on I learned there were better ways to do it. There was this we worked with the security system in Cape Town where they have all the cameras
Uh-huh.
on the streets, and so they consistently see who are the pedophiles, but there's nothing that it's not part of. They don't do anything about it. So one night I saw what this one restaurant owner was doing to one of the children, and he gave him. It was in the middle of the winter, and he gave him a jacket and an apple for this sexual act. A small child, 9 years old. And
Wow.
I got so angry because he's this prominent restaurant owner um, at Green Market Square, which is also a prominent place in Cape Town. And um, I literally went into his restaurant every day and I told everyone that came in there that he's a pedophile and that we saw him on the camera. And eventually I had to close down his business because I harassed him. And
Oh my gosh.
one night I did run off then. And yeah, it almost got a bit physical. But it's there was just this anger inside of me for what he did, and no one's doing anything. Everyone's seeing it on camera, but no one's doing anything about it. And um so they focus on other crimes and things. And just that thing of the children not being protected, and that even though we had a court case where it was this guy and he was involved with 80 of our children, and because they verbally cannot express themselves in the way that we do in an educated way, he almost got away with it. And just going through that with them and helping them with their testimonies, and so that it's um, can land a conviction. But it took quite a while.
Wow.
So yeah, there had been times like that, and yeah. So but later on, I learned to not only try to fight from earth, but God taught me how to fight from heaven.
Wow.
And I actually got more results where I could engage with my angels and engage with the children's angels, and where there were more results, and
Wow.
where we could help people in a better way in terms of that. And also then you do it from a position of victory, not from a position of anger. And even if it's righteous anger, it's it's not from a position of being emotional about it. It's from a position of their strategy, and the strategy comes from heaven, and that made a big difference. Yeah.
Can you give us a story of like what was going on earth and how did you fight in heaven, and then what was the result that you said you get better results that way? Can you think of a story that you could share so people can
Yes.
understand? Yeah.
Is there was this little girl. We had a program during the day. We also had rehab programs, but we had a program during the day where the children can come and play games and have something to eat and just talk, just a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
And this girl came in, I think she was 8 or 9, I'm not sure. And it was in the middle of summer, which get very hot. And I think it was like 40 degrees Celsius. And she came in with gloves every time. And she didn't want to speak to anyone. But once you get close to her, there's a smell that comes from her hands that, you just know something is very wrong. So because she's so traumatized and doesn't trust anyone, and she was new on the streets, I haven't seen her before then. So I went into the courtrooms of heaven, and I basically just brought her before the Lord. And what's so interesting is that it's not like an adult court. It's like a children's court, where every child gets welcomed, and it's a different atmosphere. It's not very formal, but it's a court. And I just took her to the courtrooms of heaven, and spoke to the father and the judge, and to Jesus about her. And suddenly the next day she just opened up to me, and I asked her to remove the gloves, and I asked her what's going on. And basically what happened was that, because the children live very unhygienically, they get scabies, and we do treat that. And she got scabies that went under her nails, and it started to rot her fingers. And I was very concerned that she might lose her hands. But because I went to the courtroom, I could already see in the courtroom of heaven that there is a medical problem, and so in the courtroom, the hospital doors started to open up, and I could see in the spirit how the path cleared for her. And so eventually I didn't have to fight at the hospital to get her the treatment that she needed. And they could save most of her fingers, not all of them, but she could at least function. Both her hands she could function. And she also got into a program where she could be helped, a program for girls. If I tried to do it in my own strength, our government system, there was no name for her. It took about 2 years before she even gave her name to where she was staying in the group home, her real name. She was so traumatized, and because there was no parents, no social worker, no nothing, they wouldn't have helped her in the hospital. And unfortunately, that is the way it works. And just the fact that within a few days they could do surgery on her, and they could save her hands, and they could save the function of her hands.
Wow.
That is something that it doesn't happen often. I mean, I've been in hospitals where I had to fight for children and for adults to get help. It's a difficult system that we have, because they have to go through a clinic, and then they wait months, and then they go through a day hospital, and they wait months, and then eventually they will see someone at the hospital, and they will get a date for another, say, 2 or 3 months. And I mean, she didn't have that time. And just because I went to the courtrooms of heaven, and the fight, I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to fight. God already opened up the doors.
Wow, that is amazing. Oh my gosh, I want to hear more stories like that. I want to hear some where we work with angels. Just, because people think that because they don't see well in the spirit, that they can't really operate in the heavenly realms. And I know that you do see well, but also I want to encourage anyone who thinks that they're being called to do a court case in the heavenly realms. Like, if an injustice is brought to your attention, Jesus is, or the Lord is probably saying there's something you could do about this, you know. And even if you don't
Yeah.
see well, I'm not a big prolific seer. I do see some things, but
Yes.
you have to operate by faith, and you just have to be obedient. So I want to hear
Yes.
where the Lord
Yes.
calls you. I would just want to hear another story.
There was one girl. She was already 13 years old, extremely beautiful, been on the street for a long time. She actually acted like a boy because the girls on the streets have a harder time than the boys. And but obviously, as she developed, the secret got out. She's not a boy, she's a girl. And she just disappeared. We didn't know where she was. And we would see her every day, and we built relationship with her. And so I mean, Cape Town can be very small, but it can also be very big if you're looking for a child. And also, we have a lot of human trafficking, so they will traffic the children to Johannesburg and maybe to one of the other African countries. So finding a child that disappeared is not easy. So we are in our office and we are praying, and I said, Lord, just show me where this child is, and let my angels speak to me. And I hear this telephone number, and I dialed it, and this lady said to me, but this number has been not been in use for a while, because she used to have a shelter, and that is in Paul, which is about 45 minutes away from Cape Town. And she said, where did you get this number? Because I haven't used this number in 5 years. So I told her, she's also Christian. And she said to me, why are you calling me? And I said, looking for this girl. We need to find her. And she said, oh no, she's fine. She's with me. And so we went to visit her, and she unfortunately was raped and then got pregnant. And so she ran away from the streets. I don't know how she ended up in Paul. And we actually had direct contact with her. And it is just because the angel gave me that number. I
That's
just dialed it
amazing.
because that's, and we could have looked for her for months and didn't know.
Wow.
She didn't have any contact with anyone, with any of her family. Most children don't, some of them do. But by the time they reach the street, they've lost 22 primary people out of their lives. That's teachers, aunts, uncles. They just get disconnected from the family unit. They also don't have a concept of family. Like they don't understand how the family unit works, like a mother, father, children, extended family. And we've seen that a lot. But with her, it was so good to just see her and to know she's safe. We don't have to worry. She is where she needs to be. But my one friend, she worked for British Airways, and she was part of the cabin crew. And just before this girl got lost or ran away or whatever, she prayed that, because every time when we closed the program for the day, we pray for each child. And I remember she prayed for her, and she asked her angels to protect her. And so for me, that was just so good to see that happening. Where we can't reach, the angels do, and Jesus, and the Father and the Holy Spirit. So yeah, that's one of the things that I do remember that happened with her. And she did, the lady that took her in, she helped her.
Wow. So
Yeah.
when you're talking about we, are you talking about the network that you started or one of the
Yes,
NG? Oh, okay.
the network, as well as we had a team that went on to the streets, because some children will connect with me, but other children will connect with a man, or so we were about 30 people in on and off that volunteered. But me and my one friend and her husband too, we drove. We were the ones that organized everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I
Wow.
was the one that basically did all the medical things and made sure that they got medical treatment.
Yeah, you told me a funny story about that they couldn't get the prosthesis for the 9-year-old boy who couldn't get a prosthesis. Why don't you
Um,
tell that story again? That was pretty good.
oh yes. Um, I'm not using any names because it is sensitive information. But this one child, he lived in an area close to the airport with his mom. His mom's alcoholic, and he got very hurt. They had like a graveyard close to where they stay, and this stone fell on his leg, and he unfortunately lost his leg. So then he ended up on the street, and he was very violent, very very aggressive. Couldn't speak to him. Um, almost demonic the way he was acting. One side I understand because he had to protect himself, where other children, he was actually very small for his age. So I understand why he was so aggressive, but even with us, very, very difficult to reach him. And so basically what happened with him was he came to a point, he went with us to the Anastasis mercy ship the one day, and he saw all these children being helped. And when we walked out, he said, "I'm going to get a leg." And I said, "Okay." And he got the papers himself, the documents, and he tried to go through the medical system himself, um, which didn't work. He couldn't read. And the way he looked and his aggressive behavior, they just didn't want to help him. So what happened is you go to the clinic with this form, and then someone has to sign it for you. But because he was a street child, they just gave him another day, 2 months later, 2 months later, 2 months later. So he came to me with this card with all these dates on. And I said to him, "So what did I say? Did they help you?" He said, "No. They just keep giving him another date. And he can't read the form, so he doesn't understand." So I said, "Okay, I'll find you tomorrow morning at Green Market Square. We're going to this clinic." Because this guy only have to sign one form, only one document. So I walked in there early in the morning, and this guy who's working there tried to shut the door in my face. And I just put my foot in the door and I pushed the door open and I put the document in front of him and I said to him, "You only have to sign this document. This child is not going to wait another 8 hours today." So he signed it. I don't think I scared him or anything. I just think he was so taken aback at someone is doing this to him. Because apparently he just locks his door during the day and then at the end of the day he goes home.
Wow.
So we went out of there and this child said, "In and out, 10 minutes, Sister Adri. Let's go have some coffee." so so
In and out, Sister Adri.
yeah, um, he was prepared to sit the whole day.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what people do and then have to come back the next day because they're not out. Anyway, so he did get into rehab, 14 months, a drug rehab. But while he was in drug rehab, we would take him to the prosthesis hospital in just outside of Cape Town. And he did get his leg, like he said on the ship. He did get his leg, and he did really, really well.
Oh,
He was clean, clean 4 years, and then he died in an accident. But in those 4 years, such amazing things happened. A lot of healing. He reconciled with his mom, although she's still an alcoholic. Every time we got to the little place that she was staying, she was staying on it's like a government housing thing,
mhm.
and she would stay on the second floor, and she would be so drunk that she would fall off the stairs every time. It doesn't matter if it's a Wednesday or a Sunday or whatever. And so, just the love in his heart towards his mom, regardless of what she's done to him, and regardless of how she looked that day, and just all that aggression was gone. And he did come to Christ, and his whole demeanor changed, and he had his plans for his future, and he learned to read, and yeah, um, that if I think of him and just the change in him over time, it can only be God. There's no other way. Yes, there's human intervention, but it can only be God.
Wow, that's so good. Oh my gosh. Any other stories you want to share about how you fought from heaven?
Um, yes. One other thing, in Cape Town we call it the half bridge, and
Mm.
in this bridge there's a hole, and the bridge itself is about 6 meters in depth. The children will put you know, things in there so that they can get down there. And there's space for about 27 children. But if they close it up, it's dark. Obviously, there's no light or anything. And that's the place in Cape Town where the children go if they want to die. If
Wow.
they don't want to live anymore. If if and when everything gets hopeless. And so they were twins on the street, and we were praying because this one twin we don't know where his mom said this, because we had contact with his mom. She lived in Manenberg. She said he's not been there, and he was sick. He had tuberculosis, and he stopped his treatment and just disappeared. So I prayed, and I immediately saw that hole in the bridge, and I knew that's where he is. So we went down there to go look for him. We did find him there. And I literally asked my angel to show me where he is, because it's quite dangerous. You cannot just go down there in between. You don't know whether it's adults that's in there or whether it's children, but it's mostly it's children. So he was already in there for 5 days when we found him. He almost died. And so when we took him out of there, um, he went to the TB hospital, and and, I must say the nurses at the TB hospital, they were so good to him, and they prayed for him, um and he lived, he actually got healed, which for resistant TB, that is not something that really happens with our children. And it was just amazing every time that I'd ask my angel, and I hear what you're saying, because it's just faith. It's I asked my angel for an answer, and I would get an answer.
Mm.
And especially with him, because he didn't want to live. And he said that the moment when he got out into the light from this hole in the bridge and he saw our faces, he said he knew he's going to live and he's not going to die.
Wow. Yeah, God.
And he
Amazing.
wanted to live after that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but that
So,
I was really, really sad, you know, because just the hopelessness that I experienced in that hole, just the hopelessness that place, that dark place where they go to die. And I know that we couldn't save everyone. We had many funerals, and we couldn't save everyone. But I kept saying to myself, you know, even if it's just that 1%, then I'll be there.
so this hole in the bridge, I'm envisioning like a cave or something in.
It's on top of the bridge. The bridge, that half of the bridge doesn't get used anymore, except for like movie companies that shoot scenes there. So it's a hole that maybe because of I don't know what, it just there's a hole where they can go down.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. And that's where,
And we did go to the city of Cape Town so that that hole can be closed because we don't want that you know, to be open, but it's still there.
wow.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about these kids, are they black or white or a mix? Or I'm just thinking of
Um,
what South Africa is like.
in Cape Town,
Mm-hmm.
it is mostly black children. We had a group in South Africa. We have different tribes, so most of the children were Xhosa, and what we have a group that's called Cape Colored. They call themselves Cape Colored. I know it's not a good word in America to use, but that's what they call themselves. So there's a lot of them. They are a group of white children as well. But when I worked with the Street Children's Alliance in Johannesburg, um, they mostly have black children, but then in Pretoria they mostly have white children. So it depends on the area, you know, as to the population, if it's more white, if it's more black. So it depends. Yeah.
I see. Okay. So, you know, one of the things that I just want you to refresh my memory on it. At what time, and I'm if you don't want to talk about your story, I'm totally understand. I know
Yeah.
that it's hard to talk about, but I do want to know, like, when did you come to Jesus? And I know that he showed up to you, and there was quite a story that we told in the first segment. But how
Yeah.
old were you at that time?
I was 16.
You were 16. And then when did you escape from your family?
When I was 18, when I could
Oh,
actually legally get away.
okay. So during that time, do you remember when you were a child, like, or like, was the abuse just like constant, like ever since you can remember when you were a baby, or was there a time when you didn't have abuse, or?
It was constant.
Oh yeah. I'm
Yeah.
so
So
sorry.
there was no getting away from it in that sense as a child.
And your whole family was involved in it, right?
Yes.
Okay. And how many brothers and sisters do you have?
Um, I I do have a sister. Yeah, you see, with how will I put it? There are half sisters and half brothers. So if you
Sure.
speak about brothers and sisters, there's quite a few.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I understand. But one true sister, one that's full, both your mom and your
Yes.
father? Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Okay,
There's a lot of things I don't really know, but
I
yes,
see.
I do have
Okay.
a sister.
All right. Do you want to share anything more about her or her twin daughters?
No, not at the moment.
Okay. All right.
I rather not share anything about
Sure.
her.
Sure. I
Okay.
understand. You mentioned that, you're going through a lot of pain right now as you're, fighting and you're, going through this stuff, and you don't take medication because you were forced to take drugs when you were little. That was a new piece of intel for me, that I didn't know that they forced you to take drugs. So you want to talk about that, or is that not?
Yeah, I think it's just, they try to alter your reality. So that when you do want to speak out, that you discredit it. And also, I think it's just part of what they do. So,
So they
so
were
yes,
hallucinogenic kind of drugs.
yes. I mean, I don't at that stage. I didn't know much about medicine,
Sure.
so I just experienced the effects of it. Yeah.
I understand. Is there anything that people should look for to know that a child is being trafficked or abused or anything like that? Like, because I wouldn't necessarily, like, I saw a little girl who was sitting by herself at a fair kind of a thing the other day, and she looked okay, but I still thought, "Are you
Mm-hmm.
okay? Are you doing?" I said, "Are you
Yeah.
doing okay?" And she looked up at me, and I was like, "How would I judge if she told me yes, but really inside she was saying no?" And I was just thinking about that. I'm like, well, what should I look for to know that she's really not okay? You know?
Yes. I think it's difficult because if it's sea children, obviously they're going to be exposed to that. So they at a risk, of being exposed to it. If it is something that has someone that has a family, then it is more difficult because you very soon learn to hide, to
Mm,
hide the abuse, to hide what's happening to you. Um, I would, if I suspect something, I would try to build relationship with that child,
mm,
or if they're in school, just speak to the school counselor or someone that they might be able to trust, because it unfortunately sometimes takes a while to get the real story. It's I think nowadays not everything's so hidden anymore. Um, you know, Bride's Church, they really help people that's been through this kind of trauma. And so a lot of people have come into the open and spoken about it, but most of those people are already adults. So if a child's very withdrawn, that's definitely one sign. Not just the normal shyness or being timid, but very withdrawn, or um, sometimes you can see bruises, but not always. So it is difficult. If it was me and I would see someone like that, I would see what kind of resources are available to this child, if she's in school, or yeah. And if I really have that gut feeling that something is happening, I will report it to social services, or to the police, or to at least someone that can be able to do, um, you know, a house call or something like that.
mm. So do you think we have authority to, if we just see somebody and we want to pray for them, do you think we have
Yes,
authority to engage their angels or anything? Or is that
yes, yes.
okay?
A lot of children are vulnerable, and sometimes that's the only way to reach them. In the beginning, I was so aware of that thing. So I would go to the courtrooms of heaven and I would ask God, is it okay if I can bring this child into the courts? Because the parents, for instance, cannot give me the permission. I had a Muslim child, a little baby, that I took into the courtrooms of heaven. He was very ill, and I felt like, and the parents obviously wouldn't have given permission. So I went to Jesus and asked Jesus, do I have permission to bring this child to you? It's not my child, but I stand in the gap for this child, and there's no one else for him. And this specific child's situation was very serious, and I did get very good results from that. But I first went to Jesus and asked him, and what should I do? And can I engage his angels? And yes, so I don't just jump into it every time. I do ask the Lord, is this something I can do? Do I have permission? And about 100% of the time, God has given me the authority.
So lately, just in these last few weeks or months, you've been working a lot with the angels, and you've gotten some new technology and weapons and things like that to help rescue children. You want to
Yes.
share a little bit more about that?
Yes. Some of these children I know, and some of these children I've just been introduced to by my angel. And so a while back, I think that's maybe what you were speaking about, is that my angel took me to this place, and there were these two girls, little girls, and they were obviously being trafficked, and this abductor or kidnapper, it could have even been a parent, was just controlling them in every way. And where the older child kind of accepted the situation that she's not going to get away, the younger one tried to speak to the people around her, and she didn't get a response, a positive response. Like she wanted someone to release her from this, what's happening to her. And so the angel gave me a device which is called a Pathfinder, which is heavenly technology. And I showed these, I came in between the kidnapper and the two girls, and I showed them this device, let them play with it, let them put it on one another. And once they got used to it, handling it, it was absorbed by their bodies. And
Wow.
I asked the angel later on exactly what it is, and the angel said it's a pathfinder. They, because of the abuse and the bondage, they've lost their way, and that it also take away veils that cloud their minds. Like the trauma will cloud your mind in ways that you, especially that kind of trauma, that you can't see the truth, or you can't experience the hope, and it removes veils from their eyes and their ears and their minds, so that they can see truth, so that they can find their way. And so yes, that does happen. And I feel very fortunate that even though I'm sometimes in pain and struggling with my health at the moment, that God is still using me in that way.
I just think that's incredible, just amazing that you can fight even while you're, I mean, essentially laying in bed, or just in your room, and you're
Yeah.
still fighting for these kids that you have spent your lifetime fighting for and rescuing,
Mm.
and you're still doing it even though, you know, you're struggling for yourself. So it was, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, at one point I was driving and I just felt, I was thinking about you and how you operate in the heavenly realms. And I felt like the Lord told me to have you go back in time and rescue yourself and work outside of time that
Yes.
way. And then when
Yes.
I suggested that, you said you've done that a couple times. So that's
Yes.
fascinating.
Yes. With with everything that I've gone through, I didn't trust people, and there were times that I didn't speak as an adult for long periods of time that I didn't speak. I didn't trust people. I struggled with relationships, very much with relationships, and I couldn't connect or bond. And I was very um, frustrated with it because intellectually I knew what was going on, but I didn't know. I didn't have the tools to correct that. And in terms of counseling and those kinds of things, um, I didn't really have those resources. So I prayed and asked God, and my angel came, came to me quite a few times and took me outside of time. And I had to rescue the little one and or teach her something or help her to get through a certain situation. And the results in my own life was that I could mature, that I could function, which I struggled with. Um, because now you're outside of this, you're not in this trauma anymore, but you in the world, and you have to have the skills, the social skills, emotional, all those things, and there's no one to teach you and no one to guide you. And so that was my only guidance, was that the angel will take me outside of time and show me this. Usually I didn't really know what the situation was, but because with this kind of trauma, you either suppress it or you completely forget it or dissociate or whatever. And, and so the angel will show me exactly where the problem was at that stage. So I didn't have to go through 20 sessions. I'm not saying counseling is wrong. It's not what I'm saying. It does help a lot of people, but I didn't have those resources. I only had my angel and the way God was showing me what to do. So yes, and so I did. I could mature and I could handle certain things with wisdom that I didn't have before.
Wow, that's so good. So do you think that we can work with the Lord or the angels that he assigns us or whatever to erase or prevent something from happening in our childhood that's affecting us now?
Yes, I do believe so. I do believe that it changes the course of our lives. Because the one time I did that was, and I went into a period of fasting because I think I was in my early 20s and I keep being a magnet for violent people, whether it's friends or situations or whatever. And I knew the danger in that. So I went before the Lord and I asked him. And that was one of the times that I was taken outside of time. And the results of it was that from then on, only people that are really beautiful has entered my life.
Wow.
After that, I was never again like that magnet for these people that just wants to use me or wants to be violent around me. I've never had that again. And that is one specific example of that happening. Um,
And what did you do? What did you and the angel do outside of time to change that?
in that regard, it was actually a process. It wasn't a one-time thing.
Mm-hmm.
We went back and forth quite a few times. I would say 5 or 6 times, where um, we would go into this situation that has been really violent, or yeah, a very violent, or where I've been really abused or disconnected or whatever. And I could speak to the child, and I could decrease over her, and take her to a safe place in the heavenlies where she could recover and not have that fear and anxiety and all these things going on around her. And the angels ministered to her.
Wow. That's amazing. And just to think that you were just following Holy Spirit lead and working with Jesus and the angels 5 or
Yes.
6 times to totally change the trajectory or the environment that you're in, because you're no longer attracting that violence.
Yes. Yes. And I only learned later, because when you go through so much trauma, you struggle to discern what is safe and what's not, and if people are safe or not.
Mm.
And after that, I could discern before the time, this is not going to work. This person is not supposed to be in my circle. This, or situations where I felt like, okay, I have to get out of here. So it gave me that, and it also only then that I learned tools and how to discern what is safe and what's not. And it saved my life a few times.
Uh,
So with all of that, the Holy Spirit gave me tools as well to actually have safe relationships, which is a big thing. You know, for people like me that's been through so much trauma, you honestly don't know if this person that's good to you now will be good to you tomorrow. But you can't live your life like that, distrusting people all the time. So for me, that was a very big learning curve, but it also gave me the hope that I could bond and I could have relationships and I could have good, safe friendships.
wow. That's so good. So, one of the other things that you mentioned was living with Buddhist monks in Thailand. I mean, you just throw these things
Oh,
out there, Audrey, and it's like, what?
a few years ago, I needed to get away and just do something different and not because it can be very hard on you when you work with broken people. I don't really call them broken people. I call them people with potential. But it can take a lot out of you. So
Mhm.
I trusted the Lord for money to go to Thailand, which happened because I then started working part-time at a place. And yeah, this is a long story, but I helped this one lady for free for about 8 months. She needed wound care and she didn't have any medical resources. And so they taught me how to do her dressings. So I went every day, helped her, and then I actually won some award. I won some money from this company
Wow.
because I did that outside of work. It's like a caring thing, caring award or whatever incentive. And so I took that money and I went to Thailand and I stayed there for a few months. But what happened was that um, I went into this area where I worked with the elephants. They rescue elephants, and it's basically the Buddhist monks that's a part of it. But then you have to go to the head monk, and you have to lay down before him, not just bow, but lay down before him and present yourself. He's, he's the head of the area, and he's got a lot of authority. So I said to him, I'm sorry, but I can't do that because I only bow before Jesus. I don't bow before people. So if he wants to chase me out of the area, it's fine. If I don't have his blessing that to work there with the elephants, then it's fine. I just could not get myself to bow before a person, even a person with authority. So he was very calm about it. I was very respectful. He was very calm about it. And because of that, he said to me that the novice monks need to learn about Christianity and because I spoke to him about the love of God, and he said, will I teach them about the love of God? So I had all the time in the world to sit with them, weeks and months that I just had free access to speak to them and to explain it to them and to answer questions. And
you're just blowing my mind again, Adri. You've got to witness to the Buddhist monk.
So I was, and then also God gave me so much favor. So I stayed on the temple Buddhist grounds. I didn't have to pay anything. I didn't have to buy food. In the mornings when I wake up, they had like a little table next to my place, and they would put either fresh bread there or whatever. So when the elephants get rehabbed, they take them to the national park where the tribes are. The tribes they live very traditionally, they don't allow foreigners. And so they allowed me to go to the tribes when we took the elephants there. Twice. Twice. The group that we first took the first group of elephants, and then the other group went through rehab, and we took them. And just when I was there with them, they don't really understand a lot of English. But the favor that I had there, and they were just friendly and showed me around. And there was this one guy, I had no idea what he said, but he showed me his herb garden and the veggie garden and the things that they're doing, because it's in the mountains, you go quite far it's very deep into the national park that I have. And there was this 14-year-old girl, and I never even knew that they still do the rings around the neck, and she knew a little bit of English, and we would sit and she weaved the most beautiful mats and things, and she weaved me the most beautiful piece of fabric, and we would sit and talk a long time, and they just let me be. And only later on did I realize that it's actually when one of the monks told me that they've never had a foreigner in the tribes. They never allowed it. So
Wow.
for me, it was a very special time. It's a very, very special time. And I could just be who I am. I didn't have to hide the fact that I love the Lord, you know.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't have to fight for that or preach or do anything. I could just be myself.
Wow. That is just an amazing story. And you found out that you were the first or only foreigner.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Have
Even
there
the
been people
teachers,
since?
sorry,
Have there been people
okay.
since? Or were you the last
I
one
don't,
too?
I don't know. I don't know because they don't use telephones and they're very traditional and don't use, social media and that kind of thing. So there's no, if you want to go there, you have to go there if you need contact with them. So even I asked them if they would allow like English teachers because that's a big thing in Thailand. They got, there's an English teacher around every corner, foreign English teacher, and they said no, it's not something they will allow.
Wow. Hmm. Very cool. Interesting. All right. Well, how are you feeling? Are you doing okay? We've
I'm
been on
doing
like an
okay.
hour.
I'm doing okay.
Okay. Well, I just want you to tell at least one more story with about Maka and Tatu because that story just touched my heart.
Yes. So you know, I didn't just work with the street children on the streets. I worked in the squatter camp.
Hmm.
Um, so in the squatter camps or the shanty towns, like some people call them, it's not regulated how you build your shack and where. So there's no fire breakers and stuff like that. So if there's a fire, and there's always a fire, and we've got lots of high winds in Cape Town, then especially open fires outside.
Because they're
Then
cooking over a fire too, right?
either cooking or whatever, illegal wires for electricity or whatever it is.
Hmm.
There's always something happening, or even people that don't have electricity that use candles. Um, so then there's a lot of shack fires. And if you go to our government hospitals, to the burn units, the pediatric ones, you will find many, many children. It's
Oh,
gone through that. They always the collateral damage in that. So the day that I was there in the squatter camp, there was an open fire, and they say it's the uncle of the children. I don't know. He put accelerant on the fire, maybe to make it a little bit bigger. And Mark and Tati, the two sisters, we don't know how old they were because we couldn't get information. But Marco was the younger one, and she was 3.5, 4 years old, and Tatu was 5.5. Marco got most of the damage because they were both standing near the fire. So they
wow.
both got burned. They were taken to hospital, and the family moved away because they were very scared about what happened. They thought the children had died. Or that's what the neighbors said because we could never find them.
So the
So
family
they
just
abandoned,
abandoned them. They just
yeah, they
ran away.
abandoned them. Yes,
Wow.
and the burns were quite significant. Marco was burned in her face, her arms, her legs, burned on her tummy as well. Uh, and Tatu was standing just behind her apparently, and she also had some burns on her arms and that. So they stayed in the hospital for 2 years because they needed dressings, constantly surgery. Um, they needed a lot of help.
Hmm.
So I went to the hospital every day. if it was dressing day, if it doesn't matter. So in the mornings I would go there and I would help them to eat, and I would bath them. And if it's dressing day and I have to sit and soak in the bath, then I would be there. And then at night I would come back and I would read them stories. I wrote stories as well, specifically for the children that's long term in hospital. And I would just, that's all I could do. I could just be there. And by the time they could actually, go out of the burn unit, I would take them on the hospital grounds just for like a little picnic so that they can be outside and stuff like that. And yeah, at the time I thought maybe I'm not doing the right thing to be there all the time, because Marka specifically started calling me mom. And but they were eventually adopted by a very good family. And there was this local singer that paid for the reconstructive surgery. Marka couldn't close her mouth because her lip, the muscle at the bottom lip was burned, so she couldn't close her mouth. So it was, I didn't know when the new parents would take them, because they've been there so long and it was such a long process. So the day before they would take them away to the new home, I prayed for them. So I asked the angels to protect them. I didn't know that they were leaving the next day.
Wow.
And it gave me peace because I knew they're going to be okay. I've never had contact with them since. And I don't think I need contact. But as I told you, that they taught me a lot of love, just that unconditional love. I still feel their little arms around, their thin arms around me. And I couldn't give them anything like money or anything else. That all I could be was be there. And yeah. So.
Oh, wow. So you didn't even know them, right? You just happened to be in the squatter camp when this happened?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. And we only knew their names, and there was no other information at all. We didn't have the ages or birth certificates or anything like that. But for me, I just, especially when it was like tracing days or anything like that, because they would get very scared, and obviously they've gone through a lot of trauma because of it. I just wanted to be there with them, that they have know there's a face that loves them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh. Oh, I just can't even believe that you would go there every single day and be there for them. That is such an incredible gift that you gave them, and hope. They might not have even had the will to live after their family abandoned them. So they could be alive just because of you, you know?
I just felt like I had to be there. And there were many children after that, but the two of them, they're very special in my heart. And that's also the first time that I started writing stories and doing drawings and stuff for children that's long-term in hospital or have long-term chronic illnesses. Because the stories, I could see the stories help them because the stories are relevant to what they're going through. So it's a story for them with their names in it. So, and especially with Tatu, who was very shy, and it was just a personality. She will talk to me, but she won't talk to any of the nurses. She doesn't talk to anyone else. And she enjoyed the stories because it had a name on, and in the story there's always hope, and there's always something funny happening or whatever. And it she started reenacting the story. They would play and she would reenact the story, and then I realized that it's something that's helping her to work through what she's been through. I mean, it's by no means, a big thing, but just at that point in time, there was something was relevant for her.
Wow. And you drew pictures, you illustrated the stories as well?
Yes, it wasn't very professional.
Oh, I've seen your artwork. It's amazing.
Handwritten with, with a few drawings with it, and yeah.
Did you ever publish those stories?
No, but I used it a lot over the years. Not their story specifically, but for other children, I would use that. Yeah.
So where are the stories now? Do you still have them?
I've got them. I still got quite a few of them.
Wow.
And
well, we should look into publishing them.
if it can help someone anytime. But each story was specifically written for a child. Like a friend of mine, a child had epileptic seizures, and he struggled at school with he got grand mal seizures. So he struggled at school with that, and it kind of it helped him with that. Yeah, so if it can help someone, why not?
Oh yeah. Oh, you are such a blessing, and I can't wait to learn more stories. I have more on my list, and I'm sure that you have more on your list of things to talk about. So this is a really good place to leave off. But is there a teaser that you want to say, oh, but we have to talk about this or this, and I'll say, oh, sorry, they're gonna have to come back next time.
I didn't know there's gonna be a next time. Yeah, there's just something that I want to read about my own healing. It's just an experience that I had. If it's okay if I read it.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Okay, so I titled it Change. I placed my hands of desperation in my garden one more time. I detected a faint, almost unnoticeable vibration of life force. It ripples almost undetectable underneath my feet, fading lightly through the stillness of the vast expanse of numbness in my heart. The eyes of my heart adjusted, and I noticed a gentle energy that ripples across the water. It ascends and descends in a soothing way as it gains momentum. It rises and rises higher and higher, saturating and soaking. It is the song of fire and the song of the wind. It brings forth the name of hope. It releases the song of love, the forgotten song of my first love. I hear the beautiful sound of the implosion of walls, structures, and lies. Rolling echoes of his calling reaches me, and my garden bursts into colors and new life. I feel the song of angels and the song of new creation, all in one crescendo. He is the cleansing storm inside me. He is my sound and my song. He is the great I am. He is the God that loves me.
Wow. Beautiful. And when did you write that?
It was a few years ago when I went through some healing, and I never really lost hope because the light of God has always been there, but I have been through periods of time where it's been really tough. And this was just one of the lighting, what I call light encounters.
That's beautiful. So, I guess I just have to ask one more hard question.
Okay.
When you're rescuing the kids, was there, I know that you've rescued them from abuse and pedophilia and being trafficked for sexual stuff. Was there
Yes.
ever any of the satanic rituals that you rescued kids from? That, like the things that you went through?
Yes. In terms of the street children, a lot of that happens to them
Oh, wow.
because they're so vulnerable. Yes. And yeah, so definitely.
All
And
right.
unfortunately, it's like two sides of a coin. You have the traumatized child, if you speak about street children. You have the traumatized child, but you have the criminal aspect as well. Whether they're 4 years old and whether they're 15 years old, they all get drawn into that. And so the more bondage these pedophiles or whatever can take them into, the more they can control them. And so that's one of the areas that they do draw them into rituals and stuff like that. So yes.
Oh my gosh, that's just horrible. So, okay, we better just stop and talk about that kind of stuff that last time.
The thing is, what I've learned is there's a lot of hope and a lot of light.
Mhm.
That it is this massive worldwide problem of human trafficking, whether someone's on the street or not, whether they're kidnapped or not, whether they live at home and go through that. But there is light and there's hope. And they are potential, they have potential. They're not damaged beyond repair. The restoration of God is actually there, you know. So for me, if I think about it, the things that we've experienced and all the stories and that, there's hope. But the only hope that we have is the Lord. We don't have any other hope. In desperate situations like that, there's no other hope.
Well, that is a great note to end on. Thank you, Adri. Thank you for your inspiration and your hope. And thank you for being willing to be God's hands and feet. I mean, obviously throughout your life in the physical realm and in the spiritual, and now even more in the spiritual realm. So thank you for that.
Okay.
And
Thank you for giving me some time to speak about some of the things.
Of course, of course. All right, you guys. So as we mentioned in part 1, we have figured out a way to get money to Adri because her medical expenses and the things that help with ease the pain and a lot of other things we figured out, she can't take pills because of she can't swallow the pill. So we figured out how to get like at nutrient patches that she can just put on her skin, but of course they cost money. So if you would like to donate, you can donate through Spirit Centered Business. So go to spiritcenteredbusiness.com and click the donate button, and you can just put in there that it's for Adri, and we will get that money over to her. And the reason that I say that we figured it out is because it was a bit of a challenge. I can't just PayPal her money. So it doesn't work that way in South Africa. But we do have a way to get it to her now. And every little bit helps and it counts and it's blessed. And we just believe that the Lord has great things for Adri to still do. All right. So thank you again, Adri. Thank you for being vulnerable and willing to share. And thank you for all that you still do. You are so valued and so anointed and such an inspiration and such a builder of the kingdom.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, you guys, guess what? All through the show, Audrey was talking about the miracles that happened. Well, she just WhatsApped me. It's a couple hours after we filmed that, and she said she just found out that there was absolutely no internet service in her whole area in the region. Nobody had internet. And yet she and I did the whole show and there was no signal drop or anything. So another yay God. Woohoo!
Hey there, SCB peeps. I want to give a huge shout out and deep appreciation and thanks to Candace Benton. She has become a super sponsor for the Spirit Centered Business Show. So I would appreciate you helping me in sending blessings and abundance back to her. Thank you so much, Candace, and you are well loved.
Thank you for listening to Spirit Centered Business with Bralynn Newby. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. The next stage of doing business by being spirit-centered is coming together in collaboration, working with spiritual principles, and knowing our destiny. Join our tribe at spiritcenteredbusiness.com, and we'll catch you on the next broadcast. Peace out.